Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of The Business of YouTube. Today, we have a special guest from the other side of the pond, somebody who has been like in the industry on one side and the other side, from broadcasting to creator economy. And he is known as the cartographer, the Media Universe Cartographer globally. So I guess that makes me easy to introduce you. And here we have Ivan Shapiro, welcome on to the podcast. So glad to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You're the one and only cartographer, aren't you?
I think there are many cartographers. I think I'm the only cartographer in media. Yes.
Yes. So you're the not the king, you're the emperor of cartography in media. No, definitely you are.
I don't like emperors by a rule. So I'm gonna say I think you described it right. I consider myself more of an artist than an expert. But I think it's in the eye of the beholder.
Well, definitely, you have the passion about it. That's clearly obvious from anything you write or share online, conferences, and I think that's not only you have the knowledge, is the way you present it. That I think it makes it very enjoyable. Even if you don't understand anything on the industry, it's like, oh, this is actually cool.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll be honest with you. I think a good deal of that comes from the way I started. I began teaching at NYU almost 20 years ago. And the task of making lots of information about the media universe, entertaining and informational and educational at 6:30 on a Monday night to a bunch of young, 18 to 22-year-olds who are half asleep, let's be honest, or on their computer pretending to take notes while they're actually on, Instagram or wherever. That became a high bar to hurdle. And so the graphics that I do, including the map and the presentation style and the narrative and the punchy way I put out complex pools of data, was entirely built for that forum. And I believe that's really the stepping stone to where I am today.
So it's creativity and data at the same time, like how to survive a class, how to survive teaching a class.
How to make it entertaining. Exactly. I think, there is real science behind if a topic is presented in an entertaining format. We all remember, nursery rhymes, or we had here Schoolhouse Rock on television, which taught us many Americans now know the preamble to the Constitution because of a song that they saw on television when they were a kid. And so that format, putting the broccoli inside a whole bunch of cheese works. And so that's really what I did for the class, and was able to translate that to really an educational amount of content that I put out to the community.
Yeah, definitely. That really stands out. But let's go to your point. You were telling a bit of your history, but what's your story? I mean, what's your bio like? Not the LinkedIn bio, like the real passionate story. What brings you here today?
I dropped out of college to pursue a life in theater, to write and direct, to be an artist, to be a creator. And I did that at night while I took day jobs in commercial theater and nonprofit theater. And then I had to choose. And so I took all the creative juices I got from my creative career and poured it into being an executive in theater, in marketing, in TV. And I worked my way through various jobs. I was the head of marketing in the New York Shakespeare Festival. The brand you see on Shakespeare in the Park and the Public Theater downtown was a brand that I helped create, 30 years ago, actually this summer. And then I moved into marketing, working on film and television. And then I became the head of marketing of something called Core TV, and went on to become the head of marketing of IFC, and then the head of IFC, and then the head of IFC and Sundance Channel. And then I got back to creating. I got to executive produce films like This Film Is Not Yet Rated, a television series like Portlandia, which I'm really proud of. I'm the reason that it took place in Portland, to be honest. And then I was able to go on and produce a ton of other TV like Harmon Quest and Please Like Me, and a whole bunch of other stuff, but from the executive side of things. I went on to NBC to start a streaming service there before Peacock called CISO. And then I got shit canned. I got fired on my 50th birthday. And with, a nice little bit of a parachute, to be honest with you. And I had a moment to basically ask myself the existential question of what the fuck am I doing? And, I remembered the conversation I had with myself where I promised I would dedicate all my creativity to my executive career, but then give myself a chance down the line to create again. And when I did that as an executive, it was joyous, but I never really created myself. And so I set out on a career about 8 years ago to become an actual creator. And that's what you see in front of you here. The map I make it's a piece of art to me. But the newsletter I write, which I pour my heart into, is my creative outlet. It's my kind of paid outlet of choice. LinkedIn is my social platform of choice. But I live entirely by the creator economy rules. And some of that comes in through interesting deals with companies, and some of that comes through paid subscriptions or advertising on our podcast. So it's a really wonderful portfolio lifestyle. And so my decision to pivot at the end of my corporate career, and I was really concerned that was the end of my career, to be honest with you. But my decision to pivot and my willingness to be open to new rules in a new sector are really the only reason you're asking me any questions right now. The only reason
you reacted pretty
the only
well.
reason you know who I am, right?
Fair enough. But so you went full circle. You started as a creator, and now you're actually using all your skill sets to be a creator again. So it's just a very different level, but still
different kinds of stories. I tell very different kinds of stories than I wanted. I wrote Seinfeld spec scripts when I first moved to New York,
Wow.
right? So it's very, and plays. Remember plays? So very different things. Now it's a narrative about our industry, but it is, if you read,
it's still like
it's a narrative. It is storytelling, in as close to the art form as I can possibly get. Anyway.
Yeah, that's nice. That's interesting. And I really love nonlinear careers, probably because I definitely didn't have one, 100% not. But the only thing that got me scared when I was in university was to have a linear career. I was like, really, oh my God, and what if I just choose the wrong one? And then I'm stuck forever. And waiting for retirement? That just, no, kill me. I have one life.
But here's the kind of crucial point to that. And you, of all people, know this better than anyone. Every single human listening to this or watching this will very likely be doing something 10 years from now that doesn't exist today.
100%.
Whether it's every day as a job or using AI. What the fuck was AI 10 years ago? We never, it was a movie with Tom Cruise.
Well, it existed in
but it was not
science
something
university, but it was not exactly.
Yeah.
It was not at all, and there were no applications, and definitely there were not so much VC money in it. That's for sure.
And this conversation on a platform now, even you who worked at YouTube wouldn't have imagined us recording this on this platform now for a podcast, and especially with me as a creator. 10 years ago, if you said you were going to be a creator, I would have been, what do you mean?
Yeah, pretty enough.
Creating what?
Yeah, no, I think that what always interests me in people is like and because I like it myself as well, is like the curiosity, because then curiosity brings new ways of looking at things, of doing things, and innovation ultimately comes from there. And I think it's really sometimes looking at very simple things and doing simple things. It doesn't need to be inventing Facebook. It's really some very small things that really make a difference.
Well, and not to make this all about me, but you are interviewing me, and I am a narcissist. So that map that I'm called the media cartographer for now, right? It's a PowerPoint slide. One PowerPoint slide changed my life. So you say the simplest thing. You don't have to invent Google. It's one PowerPoint slide. Hernan Lopez, who started Wondery, He started a podcasting platform. He didn't reinvent the industry. He started a really high quality podcasting platform. And now he's nominated for an Emmy and he had a huge exit. And, like these are it's about having a good idea and pursuing that idea in the truest sense of who you are and utilizing the assets that you have around you that most people, I will be honest with you, especially those who are looking at a pivot, don't understand that they actually have the network of friends that they have, the experience they have, the education they have, those types of things.
And sometimes they don't allow themselves to give it a try, which
That's true.
is the
fear of finding
biggest
out.
part.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
So yeah, but so you've been through a lot of changes, clearly, and you've seen as well the world changing around you in terms of usage, consumption. Like you've been in entertainment in a way or another. And what made you understand that something was really changing? I mean, besides having to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what do I do now? But other than that, like what was the signal that you were like, okay, it's really changing?
Yeah, so this is about 20 years ago. I started teaching at NYU, and I made the crazy decision to teach not a case study class and not a history class, but a real-time class about the media as it was changing around us. And that's why that's where the map came from. And it was in those classes in those early days. These are 50, 60 students, right? From all over the world, frankly. NYU has a very international student body. I would ask them questions about their usage, and it became very, very clear that they were not consuming the same things or in the same way as me. And back then, I was a lot closer to their age than I am today. And there was a real divide between the two consumption habits. In 2012, which is now 13 years ago, I wrote an article called An Intervention on Huffington Post, where I talked about it, where I showed the data as polled of my students, and then talked about a final project that one of them presented, which was basically FUBO.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're slaying. This is in 2012. And I said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to lose 60% of your pay TV install base by 2025.
Very nice to hear, I guess.
Actually, I think I said, 40% by 2025. It happened earlier. And you can still read this article. That was the moment where, and by the way, people laughed at me. They openly laughed at me for having said that churn wasn't real and all this other kind of stuff. At the time, I was working on a hybrid television streaming product called Pivot at Participant Media, which no longer exists. So again, like when you think about your career, think about the monster companies today that won't exist 10 years from now. Warner Brothers Discovery very much will not exist 10 years from now. And think about what you're doing today, which may not be important, scheduling a linear television network, and think about where you're going to head. So I was working at Participant Media, and it became very clear that we were entering into a brand new ecosystem, and no one in traditional media was really tracking it. And that over the ensuing, 8 or 9 years turned into this major theory of the media universe that got publicized when the map dropped in 2020.
And the map is like, it keeps evolving and evolving and changing.
Every month.
Every month. Yeah, that's like, I think that I'm waiting to see that and the Nielsen data. Those are my favorite ones, to be honest.
Thank you.
Yeah, and because they are like...
That's a really good point. That map has become my brand to a certain extent. And, it's the hit that I have to keep playing. I have no choice. It starts every presentation. But it is evolving work of art.
Don't please do not stop it.
Right, exactly. Fortnite. It's my Fortnite. And so the things that you may be naturally good at. I love PowerPoint. I know that's super nerdy, but I love getting lost in a good PowerPoint presentation, making it and then presenting it. And so the nerdiest thing about you is probably that superpower.
100%, because
You
then
like meeting
you become.
strangers in airports and having interesting conversations about their entire fucking lives. I hate that. But if you love that, that's probably a superpower. You should probably pursue something that does that for you. I love taking numbers and turning them into interesting single images that have narratives to them. I know that sounds weird, but it's been a challenge I've been doing. Those who've worked with me know that. It turned into my whole career, and then writing and intellectualizing it, over intellectualizing it, which is what I do for a living now, but it's turned into my whole career. And so you can find that, but you have to give yourself permission to just go after the things that come naturally to you, and then seeing them, here's the crucial part, as a superpower. If you don't, you know.
Yeah, and then basically be obsessive about that and getting better and better. I bet that goes with it. I can't escape it. But now you've been for a very long while in the broadcast media. And then, of course, initially nobody was seeing the change. Although it was like, if you were in it, then of course you couldn't escape it. It was obvious. What was less obvious was the timing, but that's typical. I believe, like, if you're in tech, the timing you have in mind is different than the time that the real world has. But at the same time, if you're in traditional industries, you would expect that change is going to take way longer than it takes. But in your case, when you saw of course you saw the change coming, but who did you see embracing change in a way that was like in a positive way, that made something out of it?
Yeah. So what's important is I saw the change coming because I listened to the audience. So first, I was obsessing over the data because I was presenting it in class over and over again. And I was also starting a business at Participant that was focused on these younger generations. That's one part of it. But the data was very telling. It was very instructive. It was very predictive, to be honest with you. And that became really the pattern of my entire career. What also became a pattern is that big Hollywood was not looking at the actual data. They kept ignoring the audiences that would matter most to them. And then the other component to that was the ability to look at the data and do the math, which a lot of people don't do. So you look at the generational dynamics. Hollywood believes that 18 to 34-year-olds will always stay 18 to 34. You know what I mean? They don't understand that today's 18 to 34-year-olds will be 36 to 64-year-olds at some point, right? And that's the generational shift, the power that the millennials and Gen Z have now, they didn't see coming for some reason, because they just didn't read the tea leaves or look at the data. And so at the time, the only people getting it right were the YouTubes, the Apples, those other Amazons, those technology companies were really understanding consumer behavior because they did excruciatingly pay attention to the data. They only looked at the data. They made
only that, yeah, 100%.
Based on the data. And so it was very easy for me to go, oh, these are the platforms and the devices that most young people are using to consume media in particular. And these are the rules of these businesses, and this is how they operate. Also, I wrote this in that piece. They're getting permission to lose tons of money on their way. Netflix and Amazon and Hulu were all given free reign to lose billions of dollars, right? And that's the rule. So I just chased after that and kept chasing after that. I had to do it through corporate media because that's where my career was at the time. And now, since I've been out on my own, I've been free to kind of follow the rules of the creator economy, which wasn't called that back then. But now.
Definitely not. I was in Google YouTube when I was at YouTube, it was YouTubers. And what we're doing now, which is podcasting, it was blogging. Back then, there was no podcasting.
But even think about the terminology podcasting. It's based on the device, the iPod.
Well,
So
I went to
even
the
that device
podcast.
is gone.
I went to the podcast show, which was very interesting. But it was like when I got in, it just reminded me the first years of YouTube when they were vlogging was a big thing.
Right.
And But you cannot tell anybody above 30 you're blogging, because that's so for young generations, it's like, you're podcasting. I'm like, well, that's actually vlogging, but we're just probably like, we have better makeup, better hair, better backgrounds. I mean, maybe we don't have the
Well,
bed that is not made.
Crucially, it's better. It is premium content now. It was not premium content then.
Right, it was the exact
Now it's
definition
on
of no
TV.
premium.
It's on TV. Most of it of YouTube is being consumed on television, at least in the United States these days, and not shorts, obviously, but the long form content, which is now podcasting. 1 billion people are watching it on television sets. So, and also the whole perception of premium content has shifted since you worked there, right? Now, especially because of COVID and accelerated by COVID in particular, with news doing interviews on Zoom. This is now TV, what we're doing here, right? To most consumers, to me, and to most, especially to most consumers who are millennials and younger.
Yeah, and definitely what I mean, when I look at the data of Nielsen, like my monthly like dose of where is connected TV going in the US, because ultimately, like even when I was at Google, you see what's happening in the US, you do a plus 1 to 2 years to the UK, 1 more year Central Europe, and then you go extends Latin America, Asia. Not for everything, but generally speaking,
Look
that's
at
the case.
but here's the moment in time we're at. All right. So there's these great big moments of kind of innovation explosion, right? Look at the June report, the initial report. There'll be a secondary one that comes out from Nielsen. And I mentioned this yesterday. And I'm going to say it again because this is on LinkedIn, because this is a better way of terming it. The distance between YouTube and broadcast, right, on TV is now the same distance between YouTube and Netflix. 5 percentage points. And so YouTube is going to catch up to broadcast at some point this decade, to all of broadcast combined this decade.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that like I think it doesn't sound as big, but all of it,
All
it's like
broadcast,
all
not
of it together. This
ABC,
not
NBC,
one.
CBS, and Fox.
Exactly.
ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox combined. YouTube is 5 percentage points off the total viewership on television of all broadcasts in the United States. Or 6%. Sorry. It will catch up to broadcast as a whole by the end of this decade. Yeesh. What does that mean? I don't know. What does it even do to the ecosystem? Yeah.
So you're very much of an expert anyway on the two different sides of the pond. So on the US and the UK, Europe ecosystem from a media perspective. What's the big difference that you see, and how do you see the catch up like in approach from the two sides?
Yeah, there's substantial differences in the ecosystem. The primary one being socialism. That you have a long, storied, and existing history, legacy, and offering of free over-the-air broadcasting and other television in Europe, and especially in the UK, where there are multiple of them. And some of the biggest, most important studios on the face of the earth are owned or are part of big public service media like BBC Studios, ITV, ZDF, etc. And so that's one thing. The other part is Europe is super fucking old. So you're majority over 40, where it's majority under 40 around the rest of the planet Earth. So there's been a slower adaptation to streaming and even YouTube on television and even Netflix on television than in the States or in other parts of the planet. That is catching up because millennials, as I was saying earlier, are now 45. People don't stay 18 to 34 forever. Millennials are now 45. Gen Z is now 30. So when you look at consumption on the whole in the UK, the number 3 television channel is YouTube. When you look at for people under the age of 35, though, the number 1 by far and away television channel is YouTube. And for people under the age of 15, Generation A, it's even more dramatic. And so there are these two ecosystems emerging, millennials and younger and Xers and older. And that is very starkly portrayed in the UK. And that is growing around the rest of Europe. That said, because in the entire commercial ecosystem of television, the only budgets we can actually plan on are in public media, we can kind of know for the relatively near term, let's say 3 to 5 years, where public media's budgets will be in Europe. And these are some of the biggest content producers on the planet. These aren't just television networks. They distribute their content. BBC Studios controls Bluey. ITV Studios controls Love Island. So your ZDF Studios controls tens of thousands of hours of nature documentaries that they distribute all over the planet, right? And so their ability to plan and be central to content production in their countries is going to put them in a much more powerful and defensible position on a moving forward basis than traditional media here in the US, like Warner Brothers Discovery or Paramount or Fox, or commercial like ProSieben or Canal Plus in Europe. They're much more vulnerable to the vagaries of the market. And if you look at recent deals, France Television doing a deal with Amazon, TF1 doing a deal with Netflix, Sky TV, ITV, and Channel 4 combining forces to sell advertising together in the UK, you're seeing a realignment around more traditional players in the European market than has been the case here in the US.
And let's go to and talk about data, about the Media Universe Cartography. What is the data that you think is the most important that everybody should look at? There's one data, like if we simplify to one, which usually is more complex than that, but
it depends on what you want to measure. But if you're looking at the direction of the media universe as defined by my map, is that the question?
Yeah.
Then I would read the earnings reports or annual reports in the case of public media of each of the companies on that map. If you do that every quarter, or at least every half year, you sit down, you read the earnings reports of the commercial companies and the annual reports of the public companies, you will know exactly where everything's headed. Because between the number of iPhones sold and the number of dollars generated in the two different app stores, there are only two app stores that matter on the face of the earth. Well, that's not true. Roku's on TVs, but 100% of all smartphone users on earth go through one of two app stores. So if you're looking for trajectories, you're going to see where everything is headed. Right now, for example, Real Short is the most popular downloaded app. And it's this weird scripted vertical short form content platform from China. That's going to be a thing over the next couple of years. How do I know? Because I'm watching the data. And so you look at the data that these companies report themselves. Apple reports the top loaded apps. Google Play reports the downloaded apps. They'll tell you where everything's headed.
No, that's interesting also because then it's really not about what you like or not, if you fit a target or not. It's really the data will really tell you, okay, what's happening and what's the direction. And then you need to have a view.
I interviewed Pedro Pina, who runs YouTube EMEA, and Neil Mohan, who runs YouTube in Cannes Lion. And I asked them both why the move to the television set, why the move to take over the living room, as if there was this Machiavellian plan at headquarters. We're going to take over the living room. Wah-ha-ha-ha, right? That's really how I asked the question. And in both cases, they said the users started using us on TV more and more and more. We let the users tell us where to go. And
that's not part of the story. The other side is like budgets. The budgets are there, so you have the usage, and then you have the budgets. Poof.
And if everybody does that, if everybody defines their users really, really well, and knows their users really, really well, and follows their users dogmatically, those companies that do those things will absolutely survive and thrive.
Yeah, no, definitely. And there is one thing that, for example, when I was at YouTube, it was the time when they changed the algorithm from where the weight of view counts was more important than the watch time, and they actually changed it to make it watch time, and like completely changed the content, like dramatically changed the content usage. And that is based on, actually, it was just already the view was there. Like, okay, view count is important, but it's really short term. It could be clickbait, it could be like many different things, viral content, which is fine, but it's not the end goal. Watch time is really if you have good content. So if you want to last, you need to have good content.
Well, but
defined of
crucially, the metric is moving towards engagement, watch time, and it may mean you have good content, but it just may mean that your audience loves you. Whatever it is.
and exactly, that's what I was making, exactly the point, defining good content as however you like.
The point I was going to make was when I interviewed Amelia de Moldenberg, I interviewed Darman. When you look at the rules of the creator economy, Amelia de Moldenberg, who hosts Chicken Shop Day, she has 3 or 4 million subscribers on YouTube, but yet she's this massive cultural phenomenon, right? She's not Mr. Beast. She's not even Alex Cooper, but she's had this huge impact. She was in Time's top 100 creators. She said, and she's right, that the rules of the creator economy have changed. It is about love and passion and engagement. It's not about pure clicks and views. And I think that's something else that big media is having a hard time grappling with, is that it isn't about just pure reach. It's not about audience. It's about passion, engagement, community, and your ability to build a business around that.
Yeah, it's 100% community. And well, YouTube is always like social media has been always about communities. And the power of it is really not the numbers, just the numbers. I mean, Mr. Beast is Mr. Beast, but it's one thing. You might be very small, but extremely powerful, because the niche community you built is extremely powerful.
Well, and
that goes back it doesn't matter.
That goes back to this conversation about me again, to bring it back to me, is that I don't have a huge following. I really don't. It is great for me, and it is a business that I've built my life on. But it is, it's less than 100,000 people, and that's a really good lesson here. Is for all of us who want to work in media, it isn't about scale for scale's sake anymore. It is about doing things that people love and figuring out how to build a community around that. Angel Studios is another really terrific example. They made a huge hit in theaters, in movie theaters. And they have the new model for independent film, all built on the rules of the creator economy.
Yeah, and it's really like it's business, and then it becomes business, as you said. It's not.
It has to be.
It could be passion, but it could be a really big business.
But you can turn your passion into a business. That is true.
And for real, and you don't need to be a kiddo to do that. You actually could be a professional to do that, and it could be either or, and it doesn't matter. It's just it's a very good business opportunity, and now it's very more common to see it than it was before.
And the other thing I would say is, even if you're not a creator yourself, you're an attorney, you're an ad salesperson, you're a marketer, you're a promo maker, you're an editor, you're a writer. Darman of Darman Studios employs 200 people. It's a studio. Mythical Entertainment is a massive studio. Dude Perfect is a massive studio. Try Guys is a massive studio. I can go down the long. Alex Cooper, it has a huge enterprise. The Smartless dudes have a huge. These are all creator economy businesses, and it is very likely that you can find an elongated career doing exactly what you did in the TV business in the creator economy. But you have to know where to look, and you have to embrace the opportunity that is actually presenting itself right now.
Yeah, it's still very much like green out there, to be honest. It's all to be built.
The Wild West. Yeah, it absolutely is.
And it's fun. It's more fun. You can build whatever. You can fail, and that's fine. It doesn't work. You just move on. You try and learn, and you just move on with
And
it.
actually, the creator economy demands that you test and learn, that you fail and learn. I write a Substack newsletter. First of all, again, we're all going to do stuff 10 years from now that doesn't exist today. What the fuck is a Substack newsletter? It didn't exist 10 years ago. And now it is my central kind of creative platform. And it failed before it succeeded. And a lot of posts go nowhere, and it hurts my feelings, but I move on. I learn
But
from
that's
it,
it.
and I adapt, and I change, and I move on.
Now let's talk about YouTube for a minute, right? As the center of the conversation. Where do you see it in the ecosystem? So they definitely disrupted. That's no doubt. What's YouTube from now to 10 years?
The way I it depends on who you're asking for, but the way I describe it to public broadcasters and to commercial media companies and to producers is this is the new Comcast. This is the new pipeline to television and video consumers on the planet Earth. Social video, social media, social platforms, which would include podcasting and Substack and Pinterest and all these other platforms, these are now the new avenues of distribution to the community, not audience, the community you need to serve if you want to build a business on intellectual property. But you have to think about it in those terms, intellectual property in all its meanings. People who love certain television shows also listen to the podcast about that television show, and then they watch it on YouTube, and then they go to the meetups and the live shows of that podcast, and then they buy the merchandise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the rules of the creator economy now, and everybody needs to live by them. BBC Studios lives by them. That's how Bluey is a 21 million subscriber channel on YouTube and the biggest television kids show on the planet Earth.
And what do you think YouTube should do better?
I think YouTube needs to think about the economics of individual categories of providers differently. I think big media companies have different needs than public service broadcasters have different needs, than creators have different needs, than studios have different needs, than production companies have different needs than me and you. And there's a bit of a one size fits all economic model that doesn't necessarily fit every mode. And I don't think it's doing YouTube a service, because there are people who can't make the economics work. And I don't think there's a drastic shift that needs to happen in order to make it more equitable, more equitable to everybody who uses the platforms, because the providers of content are the value for YouTube. Without them, YouTube has nothing. And they've said that with me on stage, their CEO and their head of Europe, EMEA. So I think catering even more to the individual, and it's hard because there are billions of people who upload to YouTube, but there are categories, I think, if you look at the data of artists and creators who use the platform, and I think there's a more tailored approach than what they have right now.
And last question, I promise, although I could keep talking to you and asking questions forever. What are you most proud of in this journey?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most proud of, I went to my 40th high school reunion this past weekend. And I've done a lot of things. I've produced Portlandia. I started channels, which have subsequently closed. But now I'm getting to make a career out of being my authentic self, and the most authentic I've ever been in my career. Those who know me know that. And I ran into a friend. We were really like best friends, besties, the summer between 7th and 8th grade. We rode dirt bikes together. We hung out. Anyway, we were talking about what I'm doing now, and he had a hard time grappling with it. And then I was able to kind of talk about what cartography meant as a career. And he said, so are you enjoying it? I said, look at me. This is who I get paid professionally to do exactly, to act and dress exactly as I am right now. He's like, you haven't changed at all. You are as authentic now as you were then. And so, that's what I'm most proud of, is that I have changed. I have evolved, hopefully, but over time I've stayed true to who I am. And I think that's had some impact in the industry.
Well, that's very nice to hear, because being authentic to yourself as a person and in your career, which is like basically a 360 approach, is just beautiful. It makes you like feel like a superhuman. It's like you just enjoy it. There's passion, there's hard work, but that's how you move on, and that's very nice to hear. You did great so far. I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen next. Thank you for being with us, Evan. It was really enlightening. And thank you for all the work you're doing and you're sharing online.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, and goodbye to you and to everybody, to the next episode. Thank you, Evan.